Did you know that more people die coming down from Mount Everest than actually hiking up it? Retirement planning can be very similar. And that's because on the way down, people take their eye off the ball. They lose focus. They're enjoying retirement so much that they're not really doing what they need to do to make sure that they stay retired. And to teach you a lesson about the importance of going down the retirement mountain, I'm going to introduce you to Steve and Gina. Steve's 63, Gina's 60. They're clients of mine. Of course, I've made up their name for confidentiality purposes. And I'm going to illustrate how important it is to use different strategies in retirement than what you use while you're building for retirement. But first, I'm Brad Lineberger, certified financial planner and founder of Seaside Wealth Management. For more videos like this, make sure to subscribe below. Heading into retirement, they were positioned for growth. They had about 85% of their portfolio in stocks. And as they got closer to retirement, we had some long heart-to-heart conversations and planning sessions around what's the ideal asset allocation that they should retire with. So we talked about rebalancing to a traditional 60-40 portfolio. We talked about going 50-50, but at the end of the day, we settled on the 70-30 allocation as the right fit for Steve and Gina. So take a look here. So they had roughly 70% in stocks was the goal. Now this has creeped up just a little bit because the stocks have run. And so at first blush, this looks like your typical 70-30 portfolio. And when you look under the hood over here, you've got fantastic diversification. You've got big US companies, small US companies, big international, small international, emerging markets, real estate, corporate debt, government debt. I mean, it's really well diversified, 10,000 securities and 10 different ETFs. So at first blush, this looks really normal. But I want to call your attention to this. They had over 14% in cash, and that's not normal. That's anything but normal. And under normal circumstances, I would say that that's way too much money in cash. We would call it cash drag. Cash drag means money that's in cash is really kind of holding back the portfolio in terms of the returns that they're getting. Although now interest rates have gone up a little bit, and for all of last year, Schwab was paying out north of 4%. So it wasn't terrible, but to have 14% of a portfolio in cash is certainly atypical, let's say that. It's not here by accident. There's a very intentional reason that there's 14% in cash. And here's what that is. So for Steve and Gina, their concern was market volatility. You know, they worked their whole life. They've been saving money. It was really hard for them to actually start taking money out of the portfolio. They were worried that what if this was another 2000 to 2002 dot-com bubble? They wanted to make sure that Steve didn't have to go back to work. Okay. So what we did, take a look at this. This is their cash flow right here. And we took a look at their living expenses, which were about $70,000, and then their other expenses. So altogether, they were going to spend about $100,000 a year in retirement. And of course, we indexed it to inflation. You can see that here, that these living expenses continue to increase throughout retirement. We took 4 years worth of living expenses, and that's what we put into cash and bonds. All right. So the cash and the bonds, we had several years worth of living expenses, very much by design. And the strategy was this: if the stock market went down, they would stop taking distributions out of their stocks and they would tap into the cash. That's what they were going to live on if we got into another bear market. And I'll tell you a little story about a gentleman who retired at the worst time in history, and that was January of 2000. That was the peak of the dot-com bubble. We all know what happened. The bubble burst. We had the meltdown. Then, of course, we had the mortgage meltdown of 2008. And that whole decade of 2000 to 2009, that was the lost decade where US stocks lost 1% per year. In fact, a lot of people had to go back to work as a result of what an awful experience it was in the stock market. And this guy, by having 4 years worth of cash, he was able to draw down on the portfolio during the dot-com meltdown. He even had an extra year of cash to live on in 2003 when the market took off again, and his portfolio was off to the races, such that he was able to top up his cash. So by the time the 2008 meltdown happened, he had built that cash reserve up again because he was trimming stocks from 03 to 07. So when Steve and Gina and I were talking about this, they really felt comfortable with that type of strategy at play here in their financial plan. And that's why they had all the cash. For them, it helped them to sleep at night, and they were very grateful for that. The other reason why we wanted to have quite a bit of money in cash was found right here. And the concept is doing Roth conversions in the gap years. Now, let me explain what I mean. And in order to explain, I'm going to show you this chart, which I like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what I'm talking about is taxes. So the good, Steve and Gina, if they could execute this plan, were on track to have quite a bit more money at the end of life than they had starting out for retirement. But the bad was they were on track to pay over $1.7 million in taxes. And the ugly was that tax rates were going to do nothing but increase over time because required minimum distributions were taking a bite out of their investments. So RMDs start, anybody born in 1960 or later, the RMDs start at age 75. If you're born before 1960, then it's most likely 73. And you can see that they were going to have to pay a lot of money in taxes. But look at all of this white space right here on the chart. Those are the years where they're in very, very low tax rates. So what we suggested was, what if they did Roth conversions in the gap years? And so we had them do Roth conversions for 4 years there. You can see that right there. And it was going to save them $734,000 in taxes. Why 4 years? Those were the 4 years that they were drawing down on their cash, and they were using some of the cash to pay the extra tax bill for the conversion. You don't have to do it exactly this way. This was a fairly aggressive conversion scenario. We might take a look at being more moderate, but for Steve and Gina, they really liked the idea of saving $734,000 in taxes. But look what it did to the portfolio bottom line. Portfolio went up almost $2.9 million because there was less tax drag. And the killer, let me pull up their ledger here, and this kind of shows everything to their name. And I went to the end of life. So in the plan, we take them out to their late 90s, and we see that Steve, in the base case of the plan, was going to have about $561,000 in his Roth IRA. So that's not too bad. The kids inherit it. There's no RMDs for the kids. It can grow 10 more years after Steve's death. So 7% growth rate. Okay, 560,000 might turn into 1.1. Not too bad. But what if we did those Roth conversions? What would Steve's Roth IRA look like in that scenario? And you're not going to believe this. Almost $5.5 million if Steve did those conversions for just 4 years and he got growth on that over the rest of his life. We're projecting that he'd be able to leave the kids almost $5.5 million. And this is just an incredible way to save money on taxes, not just for your life, but for your kid's life as well. So that was kind of the secondary reason at play. The primary reason for Steve and Gina to have all that cash was they really wanted to sleep better at night. They wanted to insulate themselves against a dot-com bubble. They were worried with the AI run-up that we've had in the U.S. market over the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, the S&P 500 has been red hot. So yes, we did globally diversify them, but that cash, the 4 years worth of living expenses in cash, that's what helped them sleep at night. And oh, by the way, saving $700,000 in taxes and adding 2.9 to the bottom line, that was a pretty good secondary byproduct too. So if you're seeing this and you'd like to achieve something like this for your own financial planning and your own situation, please get in touch with me. We're happy to help. Now, is 14% in cash a little on the high side? Yes, I would say that in normal circumstances it is. However, there's a couple really important things that you need to think about that we can help you think about. And that is, how much money do you need to have in cash for your emergency fund? But then how much do you want to have in cash that lets you sleep at night to know that you're fully insulated from stock market declines? And how important are Roth conversions to you, saving money on taxes? If that's important to you, then that's where the cash can help, because that's what you're going to live on to keep yourself in the very, very lowest tax brackets while you're doing the conversions. There's a lot of strategy at play here, and it's completely different than the strategies you used to build your wealth and get you into retirement. So that's where you need to be thoughtful. You need to have a financial plan in place. And if you want help with this, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to help you. And for more about intentional investing, check this one out.